Ladies and gentlemen, I told you I was coming right back. This is Reality Check on a Friday night, which is why I'm sitting here in my loungewear. But I'm super excited. I hope you got a chance to listen to that conversation with the legendary Miss Jennifer Holliday. And now we're getting ready to take it to a total different experience. Like I said, from dream girls to girlfriends. One of my faves is here. I'm going to bring her on right here. Please help me welcome the beautiful Miss Golden Brooks. Welcome.
Hey, oh hell yes,
Don't you do that. Don't you take us back and have us talking about Maya this entire time. We
okay.
will talk about girlfriends the entire interview, ma'am. Do not do that.
I'm gonna keep it in. I'm gonna keep the oh hell yeses to myself.
I love it. Welcome to Reality Check, Rolling Out's Reality Check, Golden Brooks.
Thank you. I love Rolling Out magazine. I just love Rolling Out just in general. But you,
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we have transitioned to doing a lot of things online, obviously, as everyone has. So, so this is great. I have actually been wanting to talk to you since I saw you all, the entire cast of Girlfriends, sat down with Charlemagne for the conversation on Girlfriends, and then of course Netflix brought you guys back, so we get a chance to watch over and over again.
hmm,
Girl,
I know. It's literally like it, it's a gift that keeps on giving.
it does. And you know what? I watched this. Obviously, I was obsessed with the show when I was younger because I was, I was going through the same things that you guys were. And now I watch the show with my daughter, who is that age, going through that, and she loves it. It's a classic show. You guys did such an amazing job. How do you feel? Because I mean, I love the fact that you're not, some actors are like, well, I don't want to talk about that character. And I'm like,
Oh,
oh, we
well,
love.
that is, but no, I get that in a way. Sometimes you do a character for so long and you want to put it to bed. Um,
Right.
but Tracy, Jill, Persia, myself, even Reggie, we know that this is a stamp that will always forever be on our backs.
Yes.
Great stamp. I feel so proud to have been able to springboard my career, all of us with such
Mhm.
a monumental show that was just broke ground for Black women. We didn't have anything
Yeah.
like that. So for me to deny or hide from my beloved Maya Wilkes, never. I mean, I'm still I feel still so honored and just so humbled by Mara Brockakil and Kelsey Grammer for even creating this amazing piece that's transcending time.
Yes.
So, and people now are watching it on Netflix as if it's this new show. It's been
Mhm.
respected and introduced to a whole new demographic of people. Your daughter.
Right.
I did a couple of interviews earlier today, and they were like, when Girlfriends came out, I was too young, and my mom would be like, you were speaking, and they're like, now I watch it, and the topics are still relevant,
Still
and
relevant.
that's just a testament to, I believe, good writing. I think
Mhm.
girls and Reggie, that we put the humanity in these characters. We really did care, and it also lets you know that we're still needing that. There's still a need
Yeah.
for our images,
Mhm. I love that. One of the things that I loved about the show was that you guys were imperfect, and you showed that friendships endure and should endure through imperfections. I mean, there were some times when Joan was dead wrong. There was a lot of times when Tony was dead wrong.
closeness.
Yeah, and then, and
But we
then
love.
there were times with Maya with her affair on her husband. She was just dead wrong. Lynn.
But
So,
what? But was she? Well, that's a whole other conversation. She was with Darnell since high school. Anyway, but
right. Right. No, but that's real. I love the fact that it was just real characters. And that was the first time I think we saw, for me, being a young Black woman at that time in college, it was great to see that we can't, that we're not one or the other. We're a lot of different things. So were you guys aware of, how much that would impact and validate young Black women at the time?
wow, that's such a great question. I think that it's they're big shoes to fill because
Mhm.
you want to get it right. You want to do it right, and you want to make sure that you're portraying your archetype exactly the way it should be without it being a caricature.
Right.
I fought really hard to make Maya, because Maya could have easily been,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had to give that girl, I always say she's like that LL Cool J song. She's like the girl at the bus stop sucking on a lollipop.
Yeah, round the way girl. Yeah.
She's that girl who doesn't have a lot but makes the most of what she has. And I wanted to give her so many, no pun intended, but I wanted to give her so many colors and range
Yeah.
that girls from the hood, we cry, we have emotions, we eat sushi.
Mm-hmm.
The first shows that I remember I saw four progressive Black women eating sushi and doing yoga,
Right.
and I felt that it was really important for me to try and and show those flaws, but you have to earn the right to get to the place where these characters start to peel away some of those layers. And that's something that
Right.
Mark say, because as actors you just want to get to where your characters fly and everything's fine. But she's like, Golden, you really do have to, there's a journey to this. And
Mm-hmm.
by each person, even to this day, I get posed, which girlfriend are you? Because
Yeah.
I think like the Lynn character was so far ahead of her time. She's like that Gen X, that retro,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
doesn't fit in a box. And, Tony is that self-obsessed woman who will just wants the money and the glamour. And
Mm-hmm.
know, and Joan is the perfectionist who just wants love and the perfect home. And, Maya, well, that's girl from around the way trying to really get it right. But the four of them together, they had one thing in common, and that was connection. And
Yeah.
with those flaws, and, Maya was always challenging Joan. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
class episode, where that class difference when, she tried to take over Maya's wedding,
Mm-hmm.
and egregious. And I mean, but these are issues. And Tony with the episode where it's too Black, and Lynn,
Yeah.
her adopted sister. And so there's just, Mara really pushed the envelope with these topics that I still think today hold up. But we fought for our characters. We fought to give these characters, for Maya to cry. Like, I felt like my character hadn't cried. Like I'm
Yeah.
not hard, like sassy head rolling, not, oh hell no. Like
Right.
she has deeper feelings too.
Right.
And that's something that we hadn't seen in the late 1990s and the early 2000s with Black women, coming from the Cosby Show to living singles and girlfriends. And now you've got four women who have a range of emotion, a range
Mm-hmm.
of style. And
Yeah.
so we weren't the peripheral character that came in every fifth episode with a cup of sugar. And the, yeah. So
Right.
it's important for us that we were at the forefront of our own stories.
I like that. I want to just ask one more question about that, because it's such an important show, and I think, and as we see the development of African American television, and now we see so many shows have probably pulled from that and pulled from those characters now, but we got a chance to see those characters grow. And I think when we were introduced to Maya, she was not necessarily one dimensional, but she was definitely in her own, narrow minded in her own world. And by the end, we see her, writing a book and with a book deal. And I wonder, do you feel like Maya's growth was aided by a lot that she learned from the girls around her and the situations that she was put in that might have been out of her comfort zone at first, but then it became, it aided in her own growth and development?
That's an interesting concept. I never thought of it that way, but I do think she sort of, I think, her first introduction to the group was Joan.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they were two polar opposites, but yet not so much. They both did something from each other. And I think they both sort of shed a different light on each other's flaws and shortcomings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, yeah, I think there was something in Maya that I said this, we did the Paley Fest a couple of weeks ago, and I said, Maya was she was very judgy, and I think she was very judgy and very critical because she felt like she was being attacked. And I think a lot of Black women, we walk with that armor because
Mm-hmm.
you hurt me, kind
Right.
of. And I think Maya walked with that, and I think it took that that friendship, that real connection, and them calling me out on my stuff and vice versa, that Mai was able to sort of strip down and really even think about maybe
Mhm.
wanting to write a book, or thinking about, like, I felt like her girlfriends gave her the strength to go and
Mhm.
affair. Like, she was sort of feeling herself because she felt like she had a squad. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Got a
Yeah.
squad. You feel like, oh, I got my girls, like,
Mhm.
and I got my girlfriends. I'm good. And I think for all four of us, I think there was a little bit of that. I mean, Joan and Tony were best friends,
Mhm.
so they already had that. But I definitely think there was um, each of the characters sort of feeding off of the other and
Yeah.
building from there.
Yeah, I have to say this. One of the comments says, "My friends and I have been binge watching the show, and we're so much closer. And I've even made up with a former friend that's a part of our group that I had fallen out with before the pandemic. So y'all are healing friendships even now."
Yeah, you over here mending, like over here making people makeup and stuff. But that's great, because the thing is, like, it kind of goes back to what I just said. You kind of need to feel like you're not alone in this.
Yeah,
Even if it's watching a show, you think it's just a show, but I'm telling you, we're this world. I think we do have our groups and our tribes, but we're sometimes it feels lonely.
yeah.
You need that sort of whether it's a TV show or your own personal friends, just to sort of give you that little street cred, that
Mhm. Mhm.
take that leap. And I am gonna call so and so and tell her that I was wrong and I'm sorry. Or
Yeah.
if Maya can do it, if Joan can, if Tony can do it, I
If they can forgive Tony.
can forgive Tony with her little. Then but that's what it is. I think that was the power of these
Yeah.
four girls.
Yeah. Well, I want to, I don't want to, I want to stay there. I could talk to you about girlfriends all night, but,
So
but you've continued to work, and I'm excited to talk about, this new character that you have in A Long Look in the Mirror, because it is, again, one of these characters that, it's a topic that I know a lot of mothers and daughters are going to be able to relate to. So can you share a little bit about this new BET Her movie that you're starring in?
yes, I mean, I want to first give a shout out to BET Her, Tressa Smallwood, Megamind Productions, for even lending their platform to put a light on this initiative.
Mhm.
The first part of this is the second season of The Waiting Room, and
Mhm.
each part of The Waiting Room has an emphasis on mental health, breast cancer, and they title each movie. So mine is called A Long Look in the Mirror. And
Mhm.
Vanessa Bell Calloway,
Yes, yes.
girl who is a breast cancer survivor herself,
Mhm.
directed this piece and called me and was just like, Golden, I think you would be great for this. I know you have the chops to do this, and
Mhm.
want to tell the story. I want it to be real and raw. And this is something that I think our community, especially
Mhm.
who are plagued by this horrible,
Yeah.
um, that I really, and it's about a mother and daughter relationship, but
Mhm.
obsessed with being young, and she gets ill, and her diagnosis changes everything.
Mhm.
I think any mother and daughter relationship, God forbid it's cancer, but that's it can be a hard but very special relationship, a mother and daughter.
Yeah.
And so my daughter's very young, but she challenges me, and
Mhm. Mhm.
did those roles reverse when you get sick. I mean, it's really to see your parent get sick, because especially your mom,
Yeah.
you're never supposed to be ill. She's
Yeah.
sick. And so this was a role reversal where she was dependent on her daughter, and it also shed light on what does that mean, and is that sexy, is that desirable? She was
Mhm.
a young thing, and when she got the diagnosis, and that's also something that we as women, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with
Yeah.
your hair,
Mhm.
being angry, and really taking value and being desirable and
Mhm.
sick and sexy.
Right.
So that was a lot of layers that I was trying to find.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I think that's a topic that needs a lot more conversation. I learned years ago that when people go through cancer, so many marriages, over half marriages don't survive cancer, and that's marriage. So you can you can make the assumptions on other things because, like you said, all these different things are happening to the person, but then you also have to consider what their mental state is while that's going on. So
Right.
they're not able to be a supportive confidant, a lover, all the things that relationships require us to be. When a person is going through cancer, they're not really able to do that. So I love the fact that there's conversation around this, and the fact that the mother's very young when she has her daughter and is really obsessed with being young. There's a different dynamic to that mother-daughter relationship than if the mother has allowed herself to be the mother. It's almost like some of the young mothers are trying very hard to stay in that, like, I'd rather be your friend and your girl, you
Yes.
know.
Oh yeah. I think that's very real, and I think there's a lot of mothers out there who are stuck in a time warps, and they're
Mhm.
stuck between two worlds, and it's almost it's a low key innate sort of resentment of their own daughters,
Yeah.
and how that manifests in a way of well, you're not better than me. I'm,
Mhm.
I'm better than you,
Mhm.
and I'm better than you. And
Mhm.
there was that sort of hierarchy, where you poke at your kid. And that was, I mean, we only had 20 minutes to really get, but
Yeah.
that's a conversation, like you said, where, you already resent your child,
Mhm. Mhm.
daughter, for even being born, even though she resents her daughter because her daughter is young. And
Mhm.
her daughter did fix herself up and fix her hair. She might be prettier than her.
Mhm.
Fears that I know a lot of women don't talk about.
Yeah.
The society, aging's not fun.
Mhm.
A lot of women, it's difficult when you see your daughter who you would hold and change a diaper, and then this is happening, and then on top of that, her getting ill. It was
Mhm.
definitely, it's a dynamic that is painful to play. uh,
Yeah.
and I think sometimes I mean, God forbid, I mean, I've never had a cancer diagnosis, but you know it takes that dark to
Yeah.
get light. And I think this is really a coming of age story for the mother and the daughter. And
Yeah.
cancer, unfortunately, is the glue that brings them back.
Let me ask you this, kind of on topic, but not necessarily in relation to the movie. I had the opportunity to interview before COVID happened, Felicia Rashad and Cicely Tyson, two of the people that you would look to as like the epitome of a woman being able to age gracefully. You see Felicia Rashad and you just think, oh my gosh, she just has this air about her, and Cicely Tyson, the same thing.
Mm,
And I think sometimes it saddens me that so many of us now, we don't want to get older because it's seen as a negative thing. Do you think that in Hollywood, especially when it comes to African American art actresses, do you think that stereotype is changing? You still look like you did on Girlfriends. You don't look like the aging process is happening to you.
don't zoom in.
But I wonder, do you feel pressure as you get older? And do you feel like because I feel like our culture is moving towards where you have people chasing youth, where
Mm,
I look at that generation and I see like Ruby Dee was so beautiful, and they were just, there was a grace
yeah,
that happened, and I think now we're like, I
yeah.
just wonder how that feels to you, being an actress and looking for those roles. Do you think that there are roles that allow women to age gracefully and still be beautiful and sexy, but not 22-year-old sexy? Because that's a different thing.
It's a very different thing. My girlfriend Regina Hall and I talk about all the time.
Mhm.
We're like, we still look good, we pushing that big number that I don't want to talk about.
Let's don't talk about it. Let's don't talk about it.
It's almost like smoke and mirrors. Like you drink your own Kool-Aid. You're like, no, I look good until you go into a room with a real 30-year-old. And you're like, oh, okay. And then you're like, the reality sets in. But I think that yes, to your question, and age is a huge thing. I think that in Hollywood, I think acting is that one profession where this is my belief, and I don't know else, and I know that I started in this business very young. When I was in graduate school, I was 23 and I was still playing 16. My first job was on Nickelodeon on this show called Pete and Pete, and I played a very bitchy tennis player. And I always knew, I was like, I looked very young for my age, but I know it's going to catch up to me at some point. And the thing is, it never really scared me in terms of getting older, especially looking at girlfriends. I grew up on camera. People can see. I mean, it's never easy to see your face changing. But I think acting is the one profession where you are portraying all walks of life. You have to come into terms with, women have to come into terms with, this is who I am. This is this version of Golden Brooks. This is Golden Brooks 2.0. It's not before. So no, I'm probably not going to be playing, the Aisha and Motives. I'm probably not going to be, but that's okay, because that part, she's done. I'm okay with that. I'm ready to jump into these roles that are different, that are a little bit more, I don't want to say meatier, but you just, as I enter into a different part of my life, play, it's like, I don't know if I could ever play Maya again. I mean, at my age, talking about, oh hell no, I mean, it's like,
I think you could. It feels very real.
excited to get into those other roles too.
Yeah.
I think the stereotype of the judge is changing, what that looks like. I think that if you are okay with where you are and in your skin, and you take the care of yourself that you can. Reese Witherspoon said something years ago. She's like, I never aim to be the sexy one, because one day the sexy one is not going to be sexy. So you might as well just focus on the work. And
that's a reality check. I was going to ask you for a reality check career wise, but that's a good one. That is good.
Work, because charm is fleeting, looks are fleeting, but talent, intellect, that doesn't go away.
Yeah.
So if you stand in what you are, then it'll meet you. But if you stand back on chapter 1 and 2, and your book, you're supposed to be on chapter 10 and 11, you're going to get caught. And that's where you get into trouble. And I don't even want to name names, but we've seen that. And now with the likes of social media, and Instagram does not help. I love Instagram. I'm not gonna lie, I love Instagram, and I think it's a great tool. But for a woman, it can also be very, it's a lot.
It is a lot. It's a lot.
And it's all about compare and contrast. Even for my daughter, who's 11, she goes, Mommy, do you think this girl is pretty? Is she prettier? Who's the prettier one? I say, you know what? Stop that. And I think that when women are basing their value on how they look, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, we all want to look good, but I think it's more of the mentality of where you want to be. You can't let the looks outweigh what's inside. And that sounds cliche, but as you get older, you really have to work hard on that, because it is, look, I'm not going in for the same roles that I went in for 6 years ago, and that's okay. You sit with yourself, you have a little coming to Jesus moment, you move on.
Yeah.
I mean, life is short. You can't stay stuck on that. And I just look. There's always going to be somebody that's going to have X, Y, and Z to say. That's just life. You can choose to focus on the 3 or 4 negative comments that people say about you, or you can focus on the 550 positive comments, or you can focus on none of it and just say, you know what, I'm me. I feel good.
I like it. I think that's what Maya would say. I feel like Maya would say, forget them.
Yeah. Forget you, forget her, forget him. I'm me. I'm good. I got this. And
right.
I mean, I just think that it's a weird business. My agent and I were just talking about something, and one role, I went in on, they're like, well, I know her age, but she feels a little too youthful. Then another role, they were like, well, we're gonna go younger. So you just don't, at this point, I always say, you know what, my jobs are from God. Because you can keep changing agents, you can keep changing managers, you can do this, you can do that. At some point, you just have to stop. And you know what is mine? It's Dakota. So anyway, my daughter, I'm sorry. At some point you just have to stop and say, this is where I am, and what's meant for me will.
Yeah. Will be for me. I wanted to ask you about your daughter, but that gave us the great segue.
Oh,
So we've been this year has been unlike any other for most people in the world, not just America. But I wonder, with a daughter being at that very important preteen age,
yes.
how have you explained all of this that we've seen happen, from, having to stay inside and being shut down, and the images that they've seen on social media while we're sitting down, and we're being inundated with images of racial injustice and murders, of black men and women, and the police, and then this election. How are you dealing and explaining all of this in 2020 to your daughter at this very, very, very vulnerable age that she's at right now?
A hefty question. Yeah, she's 11 and she's endured, this all happened. It kind of all happened at once, from
Mm-hmm.
down to where we are today, to COVID, to Black Lives Matter, to just that, we won't even say his name, the comb over in office, to, and to being homeschooled in Zoom.
Yeah.
Experience more in the year of 2020 than most people have experienced in their entire lives. And,
Mm-hmm.
she is 11. So, there's a lot, because even from the beginning of Kobe, how this year started, she says, Mommy, how, why? I don't understand. God is she goes to Catholic school, so she's very Bible based.
Mm-hmm.
Kobe was a good guy, Mommy. He was a good man. Why? Why did God do that? Why? I said, sweetheart, sometimes we don't ask why,
Mm-hmm.
And so there was that. And then COVID, and she couldn't see any of her friends, and she was stuck in the house. And, then her dad, he's not working. Everyone's shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Explaining that, and we're in this pandemic, and she's like a caged bird. Kids need to be outside, they need to run, they need, so it's been a lot, sort of being around each other a lot. I mean, it's been a lot, but she tackled that okay, because she's a mama's girl, so we got through that. The Zoom was difficult, is still difficult. I think the biggest component right now, even bigger than COVID for her, uh, is the BLM, you know, uh,
Yeah.
dynamic, and these people who look like her, who look like her dad, who look like me, who look like her uncles, are being wrongfully killed.
Mm-hmm.
Being the only African American child in her class,
Yeah.
riots are going on. And I admit, I don't eavesdrop, but I did hear one of her little friends saying, well, I just don't understand why they're doing that. Like why they're like, breaking windows, and and she kept saying there. Dakota, I could tell she was getting like, and I didn't do anything, but I just was listening. And she says to her friend, she goes, what do you mean by there? And then her friend says, well, I mean, well, them. And then Dakota says, Black people? And the little girl says, well, okay, I just don't want to talk about it. And Dakota says, no, we're going to talk about it. And she said, those people that are out there, them, Black people, they're fighting because they've been wrongfully, killed and murdered and treated. And, for you to say them, it's really hurting my feelings, because
Yeah.
so, it's causing her to sort of jump on this sort of, um, she's having to sort of defend her community at a very
Mhm.
age. But I was very proud of her for doing
Yeah.
that. And I think the start of that started making her look at our president, and she's been into these debates more than me.
Oh no.
Yeah, into these debates, and she's like, he's lying, Mommy. No, that's not true. And so I think a lot of it is even causing our youth to be a bit more political at a younger age, to be, I don't want to say militant, but my daughter is very liberal, and I'm very proud of her in that regard. The
Mhm.
other side of it is, I feel that right now she's just feeling very stifled,
Yeah.
and she needs, I just think this year needs to be over.
Yeah. Well,
A
yeah,
lot.
I think that everybody is having, it's just, that's the only comfort I think we have, is that we're all going through this together,
Yeah.
even though we can't see each other. And you alluded earlier to sometimes life can be lonely, even when you're out with people. But this year, that has gone to an entirely, new level of people feeling very isolated. But we do know that everybody, is going through a very weird time. We just interviewed Jennifer Holliday, and I saw earlier that Broadway shows are going to be closed throughout to 2021.
Oof.
How have you been kind of managing even yourself being a mom? So you have to, be able to comfort your daughter, but what have you been doing for self-care for yourself, not being able to do as much with your career and, not being able to be around? I don't know if you've been working a lot, because most studios were shut down for the most of the time, but what have you been doing for self-care for yourself, just to kind of stay in a good space most of the time so that you can be there for her?
Yeah, that's a good one too. And also with self-taping, that's another thing, having to learn how to get a light and lighting, how to, I'm horrible at technology, and I've been really trying to get better. But honestly, I am a woman of God. I get up early in the morning. I do jog. I wear my mask, but I live in an area where I can, jog. There's some really great trails. If I don't take my jog every morning, I just can't think. I just started this. I do different things. I have a couple of girlfriends who we did the Deepak Chopra 21 days, 19 days, maybe that was 19, 20 days of spiritual wellness. Did that. And I'm someone who, because I spent so much darn time in school, I like homework,
Mm-hmm.
journaling, I like having assignments. So after I did that, I started this new prayer workbook, which now is like challenging me to look at different scriptures in the Bible, and writing down exercises, and just each day. So for me to start my day like that, it holds me accountable.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you don't have the spiritual richness at the beginning of your day, one wrong thing can set you off, and girl, phone for the rest of the day.
Right.
To your daughter, to everybody,
Yeah.
make dinner. Everything stank and because you didn't get your mind right in the morning.
Right.
I underestimated the value in that, because you're always so busy. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
cool, get up, go take her to track and go to an audition and do that. You're just on go. But this pandemic has really caused me to really take stock in how I start my day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And even if I'm hit with a bunch of stuff that I don't like throughout the day from beginning to end, I just have to deal with it in a different way. I've gotten a little bit more zen about things, because you don't do.
Yeah. What are we gonna do? But that's good. I think that doing meditation and getting set early on kind of helps give your day some direction, right? Yeah.
I just didn't know how important that was, because I'm an actress. I'm emotional. I'm visionary. So someone cuts me off on the freeway, I'm like, it's just a whole thing. But it starts with little things, but then it rolls over into the bigger things. So it helps me. I hope it helps someone else too. Maybe they can find.
Yeah. And Deepak Chopra is amazing. So
Yeah.
I've read several of his books. He's like a master at that. So I have to ask you before we get out of here: will we see a girlfriend's reunion? Will we see a movie? Can we get? I saw that they've been doing the Zoom. They did this
Oh,
Zoom interpretation of the Golden Girls with it just, but that wasn't quite what we want to see. We want to see you guys. We want to see you guys. A movie would be amazing. Something. Can we get something, Golden? Can we get something?
I know. Everyone asks, but it's really not up to us girls. It's up to Mara. Mara has a plan. I think she would be ready to go if the right offer came in that would satisfy what she believes it's worth. I think for Mara, it's a worth thing.
Mm-hmm.
is something that would have to come from one of the studios. I mean, and it has to come from the studios in Hollywood knowing the value of Girlfriends. And I'm hoping with the success of Netflix. I know when it first aired, we were like #7 in the country. So
Mhm.
I mean, if the studios don't see the value in it, and no one wants to do it for, we want to do it right. So
Right.
still where we are, the plight of the Black woman, right? It value in our story. So
Yeah. Well, I feel like I want to say I feel like that's changing. I think that it's slow, but especially when it comes to entertainment, I think there is a shift in understanding the value of stories, or maybe it's just we're just standing up and saying we're going to tell our own stories now, because it's just such a different landscape than when you guys were on initially. I talked to Kim Coles a few weeks ago, and we were talking about the differences in the pay and the way the shows were juxtaposed against. You look at Living Single and you look at Friends, and and so that kind of goes back to what you were saying about Maya's, this, realizing it has to be worth what you guys were doing, because the writing was amazing, and yet we just didn't, those shows weren't appreciated the same way some others were. So did you all ever feel, I don't want to say resentful, but did you ever feel like, are you seeing what's going on? Because this show was amazing. And then you have other shows. And I think Living Single can be great and Friends can be great. And, all that can happen. But we got to be able to recognize and appreciate talent, great writing, and great acting,
yeah,
right? Both sides.
I feel, we always talk about this too, the girls and I. We feel like if this show had come out now,
Hmm.
the Golden Globe nominated, it would Emmys, it would have all that attached to it, especially because of the climate that we're in now. Unfortunately, then we were on the hills of the Living Singles, and look, you go from Good Times, you go from Fred Sanford and Son to Good
Hmm.
Times to the Jeffersons, to the Huxtables, to Living Singles, and A Different World, and the evolution of the Black experience. Hey, when Girlfriends hit, we weren't too far from being marginalized in pop culture. So to believe, I mean, in 1999, 2000, to believe that we would be held under the same artistry as a Friends or a Sex in the City was sort of naive to think that, because the Black woman still wasn't being seen to her full potential, and that meant we still weren't even getting the notoriety that I truly believe we deserved. And that's
Right.
so now I think because of the evolution of our story, I think it would be such a different experience, which is why I think it's still like everyone's just eating it up on Netflix, because I think things are changing. There's some great shows out there. Lovecraft is amazing, and
Yeah.
Shonda Rhimes, what she has done, it's amazing. But I still think people are still thirsting for something. I don't
Hmm.
want to say it's another Girlfriends, but they're still thirsting for something. And I don't know if it's, Shonda Rhimes, Thursday night. That's where you saw us. And I think with Girlfriends, and especially when it was UPN, you had Half and Half, you had Homeboys from Outer Space, you had
Yeah.
Eve. I mean, it was like Black Friday. We really had our night. It was ours. It was special.
Hmm.
I think BET does a great job with that now too, as well. Really promoting our stories, different stories. But I just, there's a lot that still can be done. I mean, I'm really
Yeah.
where we're going, but I still think we just have so many stories to
Yeah,
tell.
we do. Well, we hope, we're
Yeah.
going to keep our fingers crossed that we'll see something, because
Yes.
it's just too good. It's too good, and it left when it was
Oh,
still so good.
thank
So before I let you go, please remind people where they can see a long look in the mirror on BETher.
Yes, please, you guys, check it out tomorrow. We are definitely shedding light and on breast cancer awareness tomorrow night on BETher, 8 p.m. Actually, I think it's 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9 p.m.
Eastern.
Check your listings. I don't want to get anyone confused, but there's 2 movies. There's one in the beginning. I forgot the name of that one, and then ours, Long Look in the Mirror. I think ours is second. But there's 2 separate shorts. I know from the trailer it looks like one.
Yeah.
But definitely check us out. Black women, I want to tell you out there, and I say this to my mom and to everybody, early detection of breast cancer is key. That's something that I think is really important. We sometimes forget that. We'll go get our hair done, our nails done, but we won't check in on our gynecological wellness. And I think that's to shed light on that.
Yeah.
Early is protection.
I like that. Well, that's going to be our reality check for
Yes.
the beautiful Golden Brooks. Is early detection is protection. Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
wish you so much success. We're all fans of yours. We're trying to give people their roses while we have them, and you are one of our treasures. So we look forward to seeing everything that you have coming up. Thank you so much, Miss Golden Brooks.
Mama, we'll talk soon.
Okay, thank you, babe. All right, guys. Well, it has been a great Friday night for me. I hope you enjoyed that. She's just delightful. And I agree, we do need closure. The way Girlfriends ended, like, I'm just still waiting for something, a movie, a reunion, something, right? You guys make sure you check out Golden tomorrow on BETHer. And shouts out to BETHer for being our advocate, for being the voice for Black women. I hope you guys have enjoyed these interviews tonight. I've enjoyed hanging out with you on a Friday night. This is Crystal Jordan. It's been a reality check from Dream Girls to Girlfriends. Jennifer Holliday earlier tonight, and of course the beautiful Miss Golden Brooks earlier. So thank you for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys on Monday, 8 p.m. right here on Rolling Out. See you guys next time.